Implementing A/B testing into your marketing strategy can quickly give rise to a number of questions, like what should you start testing on, and how long should a test last? Things can get confusing. Thankfully, there are plenty of guidelines you can use to make sure you're designing the most effective tests. Together, let's review some of those best practices. Pick one variable to test. As you optimize your web pages and emails, you might find there are a number of variables you want to test. But to evaluate how effective a change is, you'll want to isolate one independent variable and measure its performance. Otherwise, you can't be sure which variable was responsible for changes in performance. Simple changes, like changing the image in your email or words on your CTA button, can drive big improvements. In fact, these sorts of changes are usually easier to measure than the bigger ones. Identify your goal. Choose a primary metric to focus on before running your test, before you even set up the second variation. This is your dependent variable, and it will change based on how you manipulate the independent variable. Think about where you want this dependent variable to be at the end of the split test. Consider developing a hypothesis and examine your results based on this prediction. If you wait until afterward to think about which metrics are important to you, what your goals are, and how the changes you're proposing might affect user behavior, you might not set the test up effectively. Create a control and a challenger. You have your independent variable, your dependent variable, and your desired outcome. Use this information to set up the unaltered version of whatever you're testing as your control scenario. If you're testing a web page, this is the unaltered page as it exists already. If you're testing a landing page, this would be the landing page design and copy you would normally use. From there, you build a challenger, the altered website, landing page, or email that you'll test against your control. For example, if you're wondering whether adding a testimonial to a landing page would make a difference in conversions, set up your control page with no testimonials. Then, create your challenger with a testimonial. Split your sample groups equally and randomly. For tests where you have more control over the audience, like with emails, you need to test with 2 or more equally sized audiences to achieve conclusive results. How you do this will vary depending on the A/B testing tool you use. Pro tip: if you're a HubSpot professional or enterprise customer conducting an A/B test on an email, HubSpot will automatically split traffic to your variations so that each variation gets a random sampling of visitors. Determine your sample size. How you determine your sample size will also vary depending on your A/B testing tool, as well as the type of A/B test you're running. For example, you'd probably want to send an A/B email test to a large enough subset of your list to achieve statistically significant results. Eventually, you'll pick a winner and send the winning variation to the rest of your list. If you're testing something that doesn't have a finite audience, like a web page, the duration of your test will directly affect your sample size. Run it long enough to obtain a substantial number of views. Otherwise, it will be hard to determine a statistically significant difference between variations. Decide how significant your results need to be. Once you've picked your goal metric, think about how significant your results need to be to justify choosing one variation over another. Statistical significance is a super important part of the A/B testing process that's often misunderstood. In marketing, statistical significance is when the results of your research show the relationships between the variables you're testing, like conversion rate and landing page type, aren't random. They directly influence each other. You want your results to be statistically significant because it means that you're not wasting money on campaigns that won't bring in the desired results. Marketers often run statistical significant tests before launching campaigns to compare success metrics of specific variables. Many tools use a 95% confidence threshold, but for your experiments, it might make sense to use a lower confidence threshold if you don't need the test to be as stringent. Matt Ralt, a senior software engineer here at HubSpot, likes to think of statistical significance like placing a bet. What odds are you comfortable placing a bet on? Saying, I'm 80% sure this is the right design and I'm willing to bet everything on it is similar to running an A/B test with an 80% confidence threshold and then declaring a winner. Roll also says you'll likely want a higher confidence threshold when testing for something that only slightly improves conversion rate, because random variance is more likely to play a bigger role. In his words, an example where we could feel safer lowering our threshold is an experiment that will likely improve conversion rate by 10% or more. Ralt concludes the takeaway here is that the more radical the change, the less scientific we need to be process-wise. The more specific the change, like button color, microcopy, etc., the more scientific we should be, because the change is less likely to have a large and noticeable impact on conversion rate. Pro tip: measure the significance of your results using HubSpot's A/B testing calculator. Optimizely and SurveyMonkey both have great options for comparing your results against the confidence threshold you choose. Run your test. You'll need an A/B testing tool to perform an A/B test on your website or an email. If you're a HubSpot customer, HubSpot software has features that let you A/B test emails, calls to action, and landing pages. For non-HubSpot users, other options include Google Analytics, which lets you A/B test up to 10 full versions of a single web page and compare their performance using a random sample of users. Test both variations simultaneously. Timing plays a significant role in your marketing campaign's results, whether it's time of day, day of the week, or month of the year. If you were to run version A during 1 month and version B a month later, how would you know whether the performance change was caused by the different design or the different month? You need to run both A/B variations at the same time. Otherwise, you may be left second guessing your results. The only exception is if you're testing timing itself, like finding the optimal times for sending out emails. The optimal time for subscriber engagement can vary significantly by industry and target market. Give the A/B test enough time to produce useful data. Again, you'll want to make sure that you let your test run long enough to obtain a substantial sample size. Otherwise, it'll be hard to tell if there was a statistically significant difference between the two variations. But how long is long enough? Depending on your company and how you execute the A/B test, getting statistically significant results could happen in hours, or days, or weeks. Traffic is a major determinant in statistically significant results. It will take much longer to run your A/B test if your business doesn't get steady website traffic. Focus on your goal metric. Although you'll be measuring multiple metrics, keep your focus on that primary goal metric when you do your analysis. For example, if you tested 2 variations of an email and chose leads as your primary metric, don't get caught up in open rate or click-through rate. You might notice a high click-through rate and a poor conversion rate, and inadvertently choose the variation that performed worse among your audience. Take action based on your results. If one variation is statistically better than the other, you have a winner. Complete your test by disabling the losing variation in your A/B testing tool. If neither variation is statistically better, you've just learned that variable you tested didn't impact results, and you'll mark the test as inconclusive. In this case, stick with the original variation or run another test. You can use that failed data to help iterate for your new test.